Welcome to Cartoon Creators, where we talk to the minds behind the shows that raised us. I'm your host, Tamar Lilienthal, and today we have the absolute honor of talking to Bob Schooley and Mark McCorkle. Bob and Mark are the creators of Kim Possible, and if you're not familiar with it already, Kim Possible was a legendary animated series on the Disney Channel that featured action, adventure, and a strong female lead. We talk about the show's creation, we talk about Bob and Mark's careers in the industry, and a lot of what you may have wanted to know about the behind the scenes of one of the most successful Disney shows of all time. Let's get to the episode. Bob and Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're really excited that you're here.
Awesome.
Excited to be here.
We're thrilled.
Awesome. So we start all of our guests off by asking them, and I guess you can each kind of answer in turn, but how they got into animation or kids media to begin with. So what are your stories of how you ended up in the space?
Well, we kind of ended up in it together. We met working at Sesame Place, which was a theme park outside of Philadelphia. And my father worked at the local CBS affiliate. And I knew someone there who did kids programming, and he kind of encouraged me. And then Mark and I started working together at Sesame Place, doing videos and things for them. So we kind of looked him up in LA, and he said, "You ought to move out here. You can do this." And so
Yeah, that
we
vote of confidence led us to take this sort of plunge of like, yeah, let's get in Bob's car and drive across country and give this a shot.
And the good thing is we got jobs at an animation studio as runners, which back then was you had to drive everything around because the internet didn't do it for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so we were both working at Deke, which was very busy animation house back in the late 80s, I guess it was.
Yep.
Sounds so long ago now. And they needed writers for stuff, and we just sort of pitched ideas and got really lucky to have a story editor there who was very open to using new writers, and that's how we.
Which not everybody is. And
No, not at
that's
all.
its own thing. You know, we always, as we move forward in our career, we tried to be open-minded as that guy was, to say, hey, a great writer, a great idea can come from anybody.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
people were very quick, I think, to sort of pigeonhole, this person is a writer, and to the point that we found out after the fact, he actually fought for us. There was somebody who said, you can't let those two guys write. They're not writers. They're runners. And he fought for us, and it was definitely our start. So we tried to, when we could in in our career, pay that forward a little bit to say, hey, if somebody wants to take a shot at writing, at least give them the opportunity. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But everybody should get a chance.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's so great. I mean, so many people have kind of come on the show and been like, yeah, and then there was, this person in my life who vouched for me, or this person in my life who gave me the chance.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that you've been able to kind of pay that forward in that way. And I'm so fascinated by what you shared, because I was going to ask, like, how did your kind of partnership come about for Kim Possible? Um, but you both go like way, way back with each other then.
Way,
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah. We,
Wow.
we worked together. We were, best friends.
We found out, I mean, we met in college age, but we did find out subsequently that we were in the same kindergarten class together as well.
No
So,
way. Oh my
yeah,
Which is
goodness.
very,
very strange.
the universe
Works in weird ways.
thrust us together,
Yeah.
And you
and
haven't gotten sick of each other yet.
not yet. We're always working on it.
Yeah. On my last nerve.
Amazing. Amazing. So I'm curious, I kind of, when I was prepping for this, I was like, y'all have been on a podcast with Christy Carlson Romano. Y'all have been
Mhm.
like in a lot of places. So I'm like, what can I ask you that no one's asked you yet? Which is a very hard thing to do. But I'm gonna try. A lot of people know the story of how y'all first came up with Kim Possible in like the Disney elevator and it just kind of came
Yes,
to you in the elevator,
the
which is a
elevator
pretty awesome
story.
story. Yeah, yeah.
All
But
true, incidentally.
yeah, amazing. Good to have the confirmation. I want to ask you though, what happened after that, right? So y'all were in an elevator and kind of had this idea, kind of, riffed off of each other, Kim Possible or
Hmm.
Unstoppable. And then the development process, like how'd that go about?
I think after the elevator thing, because we were pretty friendly with the head of the division back then, I feel like we might have just given him what we came up with in the elevator almost immediately.
Hmm.
And he said, yeah, go develop.
What's interesting, because I was thinking about this, it, it's one of those things, the development of that show was so easy. I almost wish we could have bottled it and spread it out over our career for all the shows that were difficult to develop. It was so smooth. Like we came up with that, um, and and that came about because we were at Walt Disney Television Animation, which through the late '80s, heading through the '90s, was a force in syndication, which is where kids used to watch cartoons. DuckTales, Darkwing, all that's
Yeah.
all the stuff Gargoyles, all those shows. But this Kim was the first partnership between Walt Disney Television Animation and the Disney Channel. Disney Channel had already had their growing success with live action sitcoms. It was really the beginning of that invention of the tween demo, you know.
Yeah.
So they had Even Stevens, Lizzie McGuire was coming out, and they had their success, and TVA had their success, but the two had never collaborated. So we were kind of given those marching orders of, can you come up with a show that would be
For the
right
Disney Channel, yeah.
for TVA to make a show. They didn't really have animation, so it was us, and around the same time, Proud Family uh, came out. So once we had Kim, the development was really very. We had Kim and Ron. The folks at Disney Channel asked for a pet, and Bob had the brilliant idea based on a trip back to Philly where he went to the Philadelphia Zoo, and
So
Bob,
all the little kids pressed against the glass watching the naked mole rats. And
because we
when they
figured,
asked,
yeah, we figured if someone's going to say add a pet, we were good. We tried to think, well, what is the weirdest possible pet we could add? The most to make it unlike any other show that's out there. And Bob had the brilliant naked mole rat idea. And we have to give credit to our boss, Barry Blumberg, at the time. Just in a meeting, he very casually said, and I guess because we had the tagline, she can do anything, and thinking about her exceptionalism, he just very casually said, her parents should be a brain surgeon and a rocket scientist. And we embraced it. We were like, that is a fantastic idea. Kind of went back to that philosophy of wherever a good idea comes from, embrace it.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
but
think,
I don't
oh,
really remember in the development process many hiccups. It was
no,
all
it was
very
so
smooth.
smooth. And I'll tell
Um,
you, the other thing I was thinking about, searching my adult memory for what all went on at that time, our division also was, and I think it was only for a brief time, but we were kind of under the umbrella of feature animation briefly. So we had a
Mm.
meeting with Tom Schumacher, who was then head of features, and our collaborator, when we developed the show, Chris Bailey had worked at Walt Disney Feature Animation. So we had this meeting with Tom where we showed him the first animatic, and he said, "It looks great. You guys, good luck. Full speed, full steam ahead." He goes, "The only thing I'll say," and he had two thoughts. One was, I think music could be very important for your show, which turned out to be true.
Yeah,
And
totally.
he goes, the other thing I would say is this little naked mole rat character that you have, what you have in there sound wise is fine. He goes, but there's a friend of mine, Nancy Cartwright. And we're like, well, yeah, Bart Simpson. Like he goes, but everybody knows there's Bart Simpson and no one tends to use her for anything else. They always, because, by that point already, Simpsons was, an American institution. So I don't think it occurred to people that Nancy
Would
was
do other
available.
things. Yeah.
Um, so we're like, sure, if that, that we're happy to accommodate that request. If she's game, we're game. So we reached out to her, and she was like, yes, I only ever get, not that, I mean, obviously doing The Simpsons is great, but it was a chance for her to do something else. And not only did she bring all her talent as an actress, she is such a student of the history of voiceover, because she
Yeah.
studied under Dawes
Does
Butler and
Butler.
all.
Yeah.
And she really did bring a lot to the process. And to, I don't know, she was just a terrific addition. That was a real surprise for us.
That's so cool. I had no idea about that sort of background of bringing her in, and I feel like, we had Cheryl Chase on the podcast,
Ah,
Yeah.
who, spoke a lot about like the difficulty of breaking free from an iconic character once you become one.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or even Daniel Radcliffe, having read in the news that he definitely had issues with that after Harry Potter. So it's so cool that she was you all were able to kind of bring her on for something
Yeah.
different and, to do something else that was also a hit, but, in a different way.
Yeah. And she was able to do so much. I mean, talk about, you know, someone who just is technically proficient, but also has great instincts and great
Yeah.
control. Like it really was a wonderful addition to the ensemble. And I think, you know, the other thing that I think it's out there already, and who we originally cast based on our preferences at the time, uh, who didn't get used, but I'll spare them repeating their names. But um, I think Disney Channel did suggest Christy Carlson Romano, who was on Even Stevens, and we're like, sure. And Boy Meets World reruns were doing very well for the
Mm,
Disney Channel audience. So we cast Will. Um,
After
yeah.
a million auditions of other
we
people.
man, we
Yeah.
tried so many people, and just nobody.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of auditions for both roles, but Will, as soon as he came in, it was, yeah, this is it.
This is it.
Um, um,
And also the sitcom Smart Guy was doing very well on Disney Channel, and where Taj played a genius, and we had this genius character, and we're like, boy, he'd be great. He's
Yeah.
little did we know this young man would really grow up. I mean, by the time we were in our later seasons, he was like a star football player in high school and everything. Everybody grew up on our show, the
No,
cast
that's
members,
awesome.
so it was fun. And we had Nicole Sullivan, who played Shigo, we had worked with, so we knew we wanted her because she's just
Shigo
so
was written
funny.
for her. That was the only character. I mean, Draken, we auditioned a ton of people as well. And one of the casting people suggested John. He was relatively new at the time. Bender was not as well known as he is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, Futurama was on and clicking, but it was not the phenomena that it is.
but it was
It
nice
became.
because those main character auditions, when we found the right ones, we knew it right away. It wasn't like a lot of hemming and hawing. John just came in and nailed it, and
Yeah,
Will and Christy.
because as soon as you get the right actors in the role, it ignites the writing, and
Yeah, for
it
sure.
elevates the writing. I think Draken could well have been a pretty one note parody villain,
Yeah.
uh, were it not for John. I think John gave him dimension that was just terrific.
So, you're all saying what I've heard so far is the development process was fairly a breeze.
Hmm.
We brought in all this cast that was like, either folks that we knew already and could like work really seamlessly with, or folks that really impressed us. So like a lot of ingredients for success. Did
Hmm.
you did you have a sense that Kim Possible was going to be a hit before it came out? Like, was there kind of a lot of confidence in that?
None at all.
No.
Really? Huh. Okay.
No, that's just not the way we're wired, I think. I think partially it's because prior to that, we had done Hercules and Aladdin and Buzz Lightyear. And when you're, doing series with characters from hit movies, there's a certain level of confidence that somebody wants to see it. Um, but when it's your own characters and everything you created, I think there is a little bit of a sense of, I don't know, we'll see. I mean, we were very happy with how it was coming out. Chris Bailey and did a great job, and Steven Silver, who designed the characters, and Alan Bodner, who did the art direction. I mean, it felt really good, but it was, we're just not wired to say this is going to be a hit. It was like,
Well,
Fair.
I think too, not only I think looking back, it didn't feel this way at the time, but looking back, it feels like being open-minded and cooperative with people really helped.
Mm,
So that I think, one of our execs on it kind of introduced us to Chris Bailey, saying, here's somebody who's been wanting, and Chris had been working on the Clerks animated TV show,
mm.
which, was sort of short-lived, I think on ABC, right, Bob?
yeah. I mean, we definitely benefited from Clerks only having 6episodes because he put together a great team for that
Because,
we kind of inherited.
yeah, Steve Silver was, character designer. And Chris, by working with someone, he had a background in obviously in feature animation as an animator, but he was a fan of a lot of the same stuff we were fans of growing up, like Johnny Quest and all that kind of
Mm,
stuff. So, but also he brought a different sort of problem-solving point of view to TV animation, which was, one of the things in TV animation we had been dealing with through the 90s was, designers put together a model pack where they draw the characters and it looks awesome, and that all gets shipped overseas, and then the animation happens, it comes back, and there's a little bit of a letdown. Like the schedule is tough. It's hard, it's hard to expect on a TV schedule someone to match Aladdin.
right, right,
You had the
right.
best animators in the world
Yeah, it's like Eric.
doing Aladdin.
There's only one Eric Goldberg, sadly.
Yeah, so
Um,
you have somebody elsewhere, a team who's very talented doing their level best, but it's not Glenn Keane, it's not Eric Goldberg. So there was always this little bit of a sag of like deflation where you're like,
yeah.
where's
So our request definitely with Kim was let's design a show that the overseas studio can really shine doing, not, really struggle with. And I think they did a great job with those character
so
designs for that
that was sort of
purpose.
Chris's, operational philosophy from the beginning was let's do designs that are awesome to look at, but are a little bulletproof for
Yeah,
overseas.
yeah. Huh. That's awesome.
And
That
yet
that makes a lot
still
of
very
sense.
Disney in a lot of ways in terms of
Right.
how pleasing they are. They're they're very Disney characters, but in their own way.
Yeah.
And also with Alan Bodner, our art director, he had been working at Warner's Classics where they were doing a lot of the commemorative collector cells and things like that. So he was very immersed in that Maurice Noble background style,
Right.
from all those great Chuck Jones shorts and all. So, he had this wealth of knowledge and experience that people weren't really doing backgrounds like that in TV. I mean, at the same time, there certainly were peers doing great stuff at other studios. Cartoon Network had a lot of awesome looking shows being done at the same time. But I just think we had a team that was a particularly terrific set of all stars.
No,
you
for
know,
sure. I mean, it was stunning and really really incredible. So definitely. And I'm curious as well. I mean, I think it also stood out. Um, it's funny. I think that like these days, even just like working in the industry myself, co-viewing is like a very hip buzzword now.
Oh
That
yeah.
yeah.
everyone wants to like achieve. Oh my God, like how do we do co-viewing? But Kim kind of had that in a sense, way before it was kind of popular to say so. Was that always intentional to try to like hit the parents too?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, one of our thing we came from working at Sesame Place, so we were both Muppet fans, and
Mm.
we always looked at the old Muppet Show as here's something that literally has something for everybody. There were jokes for the adults, there were jokes for the kids, there was stuff that you had to have references that no kid would get, and I think all our shows we sort of target that way. That an adult can sit down and watch it with their kids and enjoy it. It's not torture.
And I think specifically with Kim, there was a bit of a mission. I mean, the first mission was, can you develop a show that sells to Disney Channel that fits their their demographic they're reaching, which was largely girls. But there was already an appetite on their part. Can we also get boys? And I think the
Right.
adventure component, and I think Ron and Rufus all helped to boost the boy audience for Disney Channel, which was you
Yeah, I
know
mean, at the time, the conventional wisdom was boys will not watch a show with the girl's name in the title, literally.
Mm.
Um, so there was a little bit of, let's roll the dice on this and gamble they will. It probably helped that it was kind of a goofy name, but
yeah.
yeah.
But I think it was part of that zeitgeist that continued. I think one of the lessons everybody kind of learned, which was one that goes back to the beginning of television or maybe back to the beginning of entertainment, which is comedy appeals to everybody.
Right. Right.
So if you have people laughing, if, then yes, having a girl lead is not a big issue one way or the other, you know.
I mean, yeah, I was talking about this on our last episode actually, with our previous guest, just like, yeah, this idea people think that kids or family television is somehow like dumbed down, lesser than, and it's so not the case, right? Like I really do
Right.
think that kids and family shows at the core are just comedies, and comedies with, as our previous guest said, less tools because you don't have the like uh
Mm.
sexual content and you don't have the language
Right, right.
content, and so it's an even bigger challenge of like being funnier with less, and so I that makes a lot of sense. I think you really hit the spot.
Yeah.
um so I'm curious. You all have been in this work for a very long time, obviously, and um,
Hmm.
made this hit and so many other awesome shows. What do you think? And I'm curious also because Bob, I believe you were the one who mentioned like the reliability on existing characters is sometimes an easier sell if like you can be more sure that people will watch. I feel like the
Mhm.
industry is doing a lot of that now.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you both want to still see out of kind of this space? What hasn't been done yet? What direction do you still want to see it take?
That's a good question. Uh, I think the business has shrank so much
Yeah.
just recently that I do think there is a little bit of timidity of experimenting again. And a lot of it now is more in the adult space than the kid space. And I think kids might be getting a little shortchanged because of that. There's not a lot like what Kim Possible was, I think, that
Right.
parents can watch with their kids and not be kind of queasy about it. Because I do think kids are watching a lot more adult cartoons than the
Mm.
ones made for them these days. So, uh, yeah, I do think, obviously easy for us to say we'd like to do what we always have done. But there is, I think, I would love to see that come back. And with sort of the exciting thing now is, what you can do in TV animation is so far beyond even, what we were doing back in the Kim days. When you look at something like Blue Eye Samurai or something like that, where it's just this amazing filmmaking.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think, you know, doing some of that, but obviously kids aren't watching or shouldn't be watching Blue Eye Samurai. Um, so I'd love to see, some of that production value come to kids who, are, I think, game for Avatar showed, game for big
Yeah.
epic stories. So I do think more of that kind of storytelling I would love to see. Um, but where it's going right now is a little iffy because the business is, has shrank, as I'm sure you know. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
Definitely.
when we put the sort of bridge between us as when we were kids long, long ago, where where cartoons were essentially Saturday morning on the
Right.
networks,
Right.
and there were some things in syndication, but by the time we were breaking into the business, the idea that Disney had Disney Afternoon, Warner's had, before WB, they had Kids WB, they had, some stuff on Fox. There was Fox had their kid stuff. So kids had a very specific destination. And then that transition to kids cable, where you had Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and that was its own big three of that's where kids were going to go.
Right.
And as that has, I don't want to say died because people will be upset if I say that in the
I won't be.
industry.
Look, I work in it. I'm seeing it. So
Yeah.
I'm not upset by that. It is kind of dying.
Not doing great, let's
Right.
Yeah.
put
Well, there's still like the little beep,
it. Yeah.
beep, beep of life support.
The crash cart is on its way, though.
And this transition to streaming, it is really unknown territory. And I think that's why it's right now, it's always been hard to get a green light. It's always easier for somebody to say no than to say yes.
Yeah.
And it's just worse than ever. Right now, the fear-driven thing is tough. Like it's kids
Well,
six.
because I don't think anyone exactly has an idea of how to recapture that audience that has been lost to video games and YouTube and TikTok and whatever.
Yeah, and what that is for us was always a funny story. After doing all those feature adaptations and then doing Kim, an original thing, we vowed we will only do original from now on. It's adapting somebody else's thing, is just not as creatively satisfying. And then right after Kim, the first job that was offered was, well, do you want to do something with the penguins from Madagascar? And we're like, well, I know we vowed and everything, but those are
No.
really funny
those
characters.
were just so funny. We couldn't resist. And we had a great time doing that show.
That was
just a lot of fun.
a good long run too.
Yeah.
Another dream team of writers and actors. It was
No,
great.
for sure. For sure. Well, I think not to end our episode kind of on this on a downer, but I think that what y'all have been talking about is so true that like um that originals continue to be important, that good quality stuff continues to be important. I think there's a misconception out there like stick something in front of a kid and they'll watch it. I mean, sometimes when I look at some of the younger folks in my life and what they watch on TikTok, I still wonder if maybe, but you can just put anything in front of a kid and they'll watch it. But I like to believe that kids still can kind of sense a little bit of quality. And so, hoping that we won't lose that art piece, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of really talented people right now that are underutilized, let's say. So,
yeah, totally.
Here's hoping
But what's weird though is the audience, so much of it is habit, and new habits form where
right.
by the time of the 90s, no kid would think of looking at Saturday morning. They were looking at cable,
Right.
So if now it is YouTube and TikTok, I mean, I guess maybe the future is more short form stuff that's aimed expressly at that distribution system. I don't know.
Certainly, there is some interesting animation that is starting out as YouTube's or crowd-funded stuff. So, maybe that is where it's all coming from now.
I mean, it'll definitely be a wait and see for sure. But I want to thank you both. I want to thank you both for coming on because in the meantime, we keep hearing these wonderful stories of these great shows that we all grew up on that kind of continue to inspire us. And it's my hope certainly that they carry forward and that we still make art that was as awesome as Kim possible. So thank you both. Thank you both for coming on.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It was delightful.
Thanks for tuning in to Cartoon Creators. We would love if you connected with us on one of our social media channels. Have a comment, question, or an idea for a guest we should bring on to the pod? Email us at info@cartooncreators.com. Both words starting with a K, of course.